Yo, 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 Joes and agents of Cobra Command. My name is Steve. This is GI Joburg episode 309, and the title of this episode gives it all away. We're talking about the Cobra Rattler. Who is we? Well, I is Steve. I'm joined by my buddy Paul L. Hey, Paulie.
Hey guys. Yeah, we're gonna get our rattle on about the Rattler.
We're going to get rattling on this episode. We're also joined by the Love and Scoopful. It's Rob.
Hey guys, what's up? How's it going?
So in this series, we're doing pre-recorded podcasts again, like old school. Which give us the opportunity to do focuses on specific old toys. And the recurring theme that we're going to try and stick to for as long as possible is talk about toys that each of us have in our personal collections, just so no one feels excluded, no one's having to work off of cool pictures taken on 3D Joes or Yojo.com and their imaginations, or their memories of what it was like to play with Steve's collection, or Paul's collection, or Rob's collection. The toy. It's an absolute delight that we get to talk about this. The Cobra Rattler, 1984, is a stone-cold classic, even more so than last time's Havoc. This thing is almost universally loved. Very few misgivings and nitpicks about it. It is just probably one of the premier pieces of the GI Joe line of all time. It's an all-time great. Would I be correct in saying that, guys?
I have to agree. It's just one of the first big air vehicles, I think, that kind of just captured the imagination. It was very similar to a real world aircraft, but Cobra.
It's so nice. They decided to keep re-releasing it, even into the 25th anniversary. The first re-release was none other than the Cobra, the GI Joe Tiger Rat. What? A faction switch of this incredible aircraft? This pillar of Cobra air power? Paul has got a Tiger Rat. He doesn't have the original blue.
I don't have a Rattler.
Exactly. So already we're going to have a rather colorful debate about these different versions. But the plot thickens, because there's a third version in attendance. Rob, what is behind curtain number 3?
It's an A10 AWAC Tomahawk.
Thunderbolt.
Yeah, 1997's best vehicle.
It's the Cobra Rattler, done up in a mottled green camo scheme and renamed the GI Joe A10 Thunderbolt, which already is a little bit of a misnomer.
A GI Joe version of the Rattler.
The A10 Warthog is actually the Thunderbolt 2, because there's a piston-driven World War II aircraft called the Thunderbolt, which the Warthog was paying homage to. Anyway, technicalities aside, it's recasting this as a GI Joe vehicle without it being a recaptured or a captured Cobra vehicle like the Tiger Rat.
The Turpitat.
But guys, something that I learned very recently, perhaps as recently as last year, 2023, for those listening to this in the far-flung future,
was that thing from the future? Carry on.
Well, the Cobra Rattler was initially envisioned as a GI Joe vehicle. Oh. Hi, Mom. There's my mom. Hey. If you're watching the video version.
Welcome.
Washing. I'm leaving Cape Town for Singapore and eventually Brisbane tomorrow. So
too short.
Yeah, it's packing station. It's that awful moment when all the clothes are packed, the passports are where they need to be, everything is ready to be loaded into the car, and you think to yourself,
what have I forgotten?
Which toys can I not live without for the next 12 months?
Oh, yeah.
Or 11 months, or however long it is. We're not talking about that on this podcast. We are talking about the Cobra Rattler and its further iterations. It seems on this podcast I am the odd man out because I've got the Cobra version. You two guys have the GI Joe versions.
Indeed we do.
Weirdness. Madness.
Shall we talk a bit about the media appearances of the Cobra Rattler to kick us off?
Actually. Yeah, let's
Ah.
get into. Yeah,
Well, guys, do you have anything you'd like to say about media appearances? Anything that springs to mind before I kind of lay down my research?
Well, I mean, probably the most iconic is that one comic book issue 7. You know, with the two jets going on at each other.
In issue 34?
Yeah, 3 plus 4, 7.
Oh. Wait, I'm now showing issue 28. Okay. Rattler was... It had a bit of an interesting comics history. But let's talk a little bit more about the animation series first. Because I think that's where things get off to a very different kind of footing to what we might have expected. So I'm going to conject that the Rattler was always kind of going to be an attack aircraft. Cobra's going to have something with the VTOL capability that was loosely based on the A-10 Thunderbolt 2. The evidence for that is in Mass Device, the very first GI Joe cartoon miniseries. Cobra, a squadron of these craft piloted by Destro, are sent to basically hover and fire at a volcano in order to get one of the elements out of this, out of the sort of the mouth of the volcano. And this thing did have tilting jet engines on its wings. It had loosely the Rattler's configuration by having engines in the wings. It didn't have the third engine in the tail, but yeah, as I say, the wings could fully tilt along with the engines, and it was very much prefaced as a attack aircraft. It quickly became fodder when Sky Strikers show up, and yeah, the battle is joined. It's a bad time for Cobra. Destro's like, keep on firing at the volcano, don't turn and attack the Joes, which suicidal. But that's the Cobra ethos. What do you guys think of this early iteration?
You know, I've seen this thing so many times, and it feels like I'm seeing it for the first time now. It's crazy. Why do I remember this as being Rattlers? Like, for some reason in my head, I just remember it being actual Rattlers. It is weird.
I don't remember them looking like this either.
They were the proto-Rattlers. I mean, later on in the Mass Device, in fact, this very battle, we wind up on the Cobra helicarrier, and you see things that kind of have a loose claw vibe about them, except the operators are on top as opposed to being underslung. Anyways, as I say, this to my eyes screams like early Rattler conceptual. Something that was kicking around in the Hasbro.
Yeah.
Do you think it was perhaps something that Sunbow animators or Sunbow designers cooked up? Russ Heath, perhaps?
It's possible. It's
they
very possible.
could have been. Yeah, they could have been like they could have known like what certain vehicles would be coming out. Like, oh, it's a hovering attack, vehicle for the Cobras, but they weren't given like the exact designs. So they were like, okay, we'll incorporate that.
But this is Mass Device,
cool.
Yeah. September 1983, and we've already got next year's toy.
Yeah,
probably
a year.
I would imagine they didn't let Sunbow design too many things for this. Okay, hold on, before I step on myself, because Sunbow did design a lot of stuff. But I think the intention here was to kind of insert some ideas into the heads of kids with regards to the figures. Maybe not necessarily have stuff that's fully realized, but kind of get kids excited and see what the feedback was, So maybe they were like, they've had this idea, and then they had it on the model sheet, and they were like, yeah, do it. Because they didn't quite have the Rattler design squared away yet. Maybe that was the idea. But this, I don't know, because just my industry experience is that you do nothing unless it's on a model sheet. And that model sheet has to be approved. So you can't just sort of in studio just kind of decide, oh, we're just going to design this, But if you do, then it goes through a process.
Inspired the toys, this got approved by Hasbro, and like, ooh, we like what the cartoon's doing. Toy division, can you come up with something similar to this? And they were like, it's a bit too futuristic. It'll be difficult to tool. But how about this thing? It's pretty similar, isn't it? Yeah, I'll just make that toy.
Yeah, that's
Well, either
that's
way,
a
there was some
possibility as well.
common ground being
Yeah,
covered by all of these medium all at the same time. So I'm sure people were copying each other's homework. We move into the next miniseries, and then the Rattler is fully realized.
Yay!
By September 1984, we've got Revenge of Cobra. The toy is probably on shelves, finding its way into a lot of Christmas trees that year. And yes, it's in its Cobra blue. You see the armament, you see the turret has been added, the third engine has been added, and it's piloted by Baroness in a very cool, like, snake helmet. Kind of reminiscent of something you would find in old school anime. I'm thinking your Gundams, your
Gatchaman.
Macrosses, Gatchaman,
Yeah.
reaching as far back as the 70s, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But as I
It's
say, the
very
Rattler's
cool.
design has been finalized by this point, and the very next year, you've got it in the intro sequence.
Yes.
Classic.
That's actually what I wanted to mention. It's in the intro.
Yep. You see a close up on
Between
Wild
the-
Weasel as well. He's
Between the
sort of-
giant snake bum cheeks.
doing a trench run almost in the
Yeah.
Cobra mothership. Rest in peace, Cobra mothership. And yes, it is absolutely a mainstay of Cobra air power, probably punching a little bit above its weight class by being Cobra's only like real air superiority craft. But I guess they use massive numbers of them, like just sort of shock and awe tactic to overpower Cobra, GI Joe Sky Strikers. I'm doing that a lot right now. Clearly, I'm being torn between the two forces because we have this schism between the versions under discussion tonight. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Should we talk comic book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
actually.
comic books are definitely the place where it really learned to
Yeah,
shine.
Yeah, so what is that? Shakedown? I think it is.
Shakedown is where we eventually get to, and that's probably the one that everyone's going to remember.
Yeah, she's
But I'm going to dial us all the way back to a story called When Chimney Sweepers Come to Dust, which is an introduction episode for a number of things.
Actually.
It's Duke and Roadblock. It's the funeral service for General Flag. It's issue 22 of GI Joe, A Real American Hero. And in it, Destro is peddling some new wares, one of which is the Cobra Tank Smasher.
Ooh.
Once again, boys, slightly different design to what we're used to. It's got the top turret, it's got only two engines, and they're positioned kind of like an A-10, but not. They're on these pylons, but they're not attached to the horizontal stabilizer. They're kind of in a, I don't know, middle position, just aft of the main sort of wing structure and before the tail.
Is there
on the
not
empennage.
another engine in the fuselage below there?
It looks like it might even have four engines. You're right.
Yeah.
It's over designed. I think once again,
Yeah, that's exactly the word I wanted to use.
didn't quite know what the toy was ultimately going to look like.
Yeah, I think this does kind of cement, like what me and Paul was saying, that they had an idea of what was coming. They were told what it was, but no one like cemented it for either the comics or the cartoons, like exactly what it looked like. They were like, just get it in there in any way, so we get that idea in the heads of the kids.
Now, you've got me asking when. I mean, unless this issue couldn't have been inventory because it follows hot on the heels of what came before, which was the massive battle at Fort Wadsworth. And this was April of 1984. So, I mean, if they were keeping tabs on the toy line,
well, if
unless
it
this
says
was written
April,
well in advance.
Yeah, well, if it says
Possible.
April, that means it probably came out 2 months before that.
Yeah.
Or
which
written
probably
2 months
made
before
it
that.
Written, created.
well,
2 months.
well created, and
Yeah.
but I mean, like it came out. So 2 months before that, so what, like March? I mean, do we know the exact date that this sort of thing came out?
We weren't there. I wasn't even born yet, boys. But
True.
it meets a sticky end at the hands of one Colt 1911 and one Mardus. I mean, I've always laughed at how
Shoot that sucker out of the sky, yo!
Duke's doing his bit by emptying the entire mag of his pistol, But what exactly is that doing?
Duke's that guy in Battlefield when the helicopter's there, and like the one guy at the RPG is trying to hit the helicopter, and I mean the helicopter or the jet or whatever's, and then somebody else is just there. We're like, I don't want to be useless. I'm going to shoot at it with my 9mm. If I can get close, I'll stab it.
Are you guys reminded of the scene in like Saving Private Ryan where Tom Hanks's character is down to his sidearm and there's a tank advancing on him and he's planking off rounds and then it blows up. But then it's a P-51 overhead or something. I don't know. It's a aircraft on a bombing run.
But it's just desperation.
Yeah, well, it's. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna just whatever. Just an insult, basically. Maybe I'll annoy them. So, do you check that in the picture? This Rattler has not only the chin gun, the massive cannon around which all A10s are built, but it's got little gun turrets beside that. It's got 4 guns in the nose.
It's got those little nose guns. Yeah.
3 guns in the nose. Yeah.
No.
But it's history.
Well, the Conquest get those. So.
Yes, exactly.
No.
With those vented barrels.
I was just having a look on Yojo. Although they don't say a date, they do suggest that this Rattler was released as part of the. Oh, okay, no, don't worry. Yeah,
I won't worry.
I was overthinking.
Then we see the design being refined and corrected, I should say, in issue 22, which I spoke on earlier. Issue 28. Get my numbers right. Issue 28, it's on the cover, and it's kind of incorrect on the cover, but we'll forgive the cover art. I think it's a Mike Zeck, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool cover, though.
It's amazing. Sort of the Rattler bearing down on a Mobat, just firing all of its missiles. I mean, Steeler and Clutch have had it at this point. This is another one of those unwinnable situations. In fact, none of them are going to walk out of this because the Rattler is going to hit that Mobat. It is bearing right down on its nose cone. It's about to touch the turret. Anyway, Rambo 3 up in this shit. The design, as I say, has been refined. It is now, it's oversized, which is awesome. It's more realistic scaling, but it's all there. 3 engines, gun turret on top, 2-seater basically. And they make use of that because I think one of them carries Cobra Commander. Or no, one of them has been sent to pick up Cobra Commander. Yeah. And that's that. Now, the one that's on everyone's lips, of course, is issue 34, Shakedown. What do you guys think of that? We read it not too long ago.
What else can you say? It's awesome.
No, dude, it's Shakedown. I mean, what can we say here that we haven't said at length, or should I say ad nauseum in the podcast? But
you'll never nauseate me, Paul.
But this is the best. Probably the best representation of the Rattler in the comic book.
Art by Rod Wiggum. Really showing his stuff in this early issue.
And a lot of drama and a lot of actual... I think you get an actual understanding. In fact, this is also one of the best, if not the best, showcases for the Sky Striker as well. Because you actually get an understanding of what these planes can do.
So much technobabble. Yeah.
But the Rattler, and this is actually something I wanted to bring out, is the Rattler is a very, from a design point of view, it's a very interesting design because on one hand, it's meant to be a dogfighting unit, right? It's meant to, it's a fast mover, it's a dogfighter, cool. But it's kind of like a weird multi-role because it's also a bomber.
I'd argue that it's faster than an attack aircraft, but it's certainly not a fighter.
Yeah, but that's what they're always putting them up against Sky Strikers, so it's kind of trying to give the impression that it can do everything.
That's the role that they're trying to shove it into.
It's multi-role, yeah. So, but that's kind of weird for me because it's because I saw the A10 long before I saw Rattler that I always just see it as a tank killer. And then when I played Ace Combat, when Ace Combat first came out on PlayStation 1, when the PS1 was released, I used to fly this jet around, not thinking it was a Rattler, just purely loving it. And it did suck for dogfighting, but it was great for like, you know, but it could take a lot of hits. It was like essentially kind of like a bit of a flying tank. So I was
precisely what
like,
they call it.
So like,
Yep.
I've always been like confused about the design, but then if you think about it a little bit more, it's kind of a weird love child between an A-10 and a World War II bomber. And
Yes. Shall we talk about the turret?
Yes. Because then it makes kind of more sense, you know?
I'm delighted to see that in Shakedown, Baroness, who's in the gun turret, scores hits, almost critical hits, on the Sky Striker. And that just reminds me that, I mean, you can begrudge that thing for being rather pathetically molded. I mean, it certainly doesn't look impressive on the toy. But in a close quarters dogfight, if you are in a sort of a low energy fight, as I understand it, like being able to shoot your enemy even when your nose isn't pointed at them could absolutely win the day. And that's exactly what happens in Shakedown. And that's exactly what would happen in these kind of fantastical conflicts where you've got a very technologically advanced enemy in Cobra. You're not just taking out ground targets. Like, this is, you know, that sort of fantasy war that doesn't really exist now. Thanks to things like the F-22, which would just...
And the 35,
wipe everyone else out with stealth. Anyway, this is the kind of stuff that I see on Digital Combat Simulator all the time, on the Growling Sidewinder channel. I can't talk enough about that guy. Though I haven't watched him since I've been on holiday. So,
so maybe you know, this past month
stuff to look forward to.
Bad videos. You never know.
But you're right, Paul. Like, turrets have disappeared. It's a World War II trend that's
well, it's the speed trend, isn't it? I mean, it's once you go after a certain threshold, you can't have something that's so maneuverable in your vehicle.
Mostly because I think you'd kill the occupant. Because the G-forces, if you have a turret that can move like that, and you're going at speeds like just shy of Mach 1, you're going to kill that pilot if that person's not oriented correctly in there. The G-forces are gonna break something. I don't know. Like, it's just not gonna be pleasant. It's not gonna be safe. And I don't want to. This might sound like a bit silly, but the bullets being shot. I don't know. I've kind of got this feeling like if that plane's trying to turn, and like, you know, you're getting into a turnaround fight, and you're trying to move the turrets and you're trying to lock onto something. Like, what are the G-forces doing to the bullets when you're curving like that, when it's coming off the surface? You know, like when it's coming off, when it's going perpendicular to the fuselage. Like, what's that doing to the bullets in that arena? Like, what is happening there? Because that's weird stuff that happens there with, physics and crap.
And you must be incredible as a gunner to be able to orientate yourself when the pilot is doing everything he can to maneuver for position, dogfight effectively, throwing this aircraft into incredibly strenuous maneuvers, and you're craning around to try and draw bead on a jet that's doing similar maneuvers around you. I watched Maverick, man. Tom Cruise was breathing real heavy.
The thing, but that's the fun side of this toy, right? Because that's what it is. When you divorce yourself from all of that reality nonsense that gets in the way of a good time, it's actually really, really, really awesome. Like, imagine this thing like hitting like Mach 1 or just shy of Mach 1, engaging in dogfights and being able to hit shit parallel from it, or perpendicular to it. I mean, that's insane. That's awesome. That makes it such a dangerous thing, and that's what makes it a real cool baddie weapon. When you divorce the reality of it and you add your like cartoon moon logic to it, which is the best way to play with toys. But, and
Shakedown is a terrific showcase for the Rattler and all of its equipment, of course. But not only that, but the men who are operating these aircraft get a huge spotlight. Their metal is tested, not just the the steel that their aircraft are made from. So you guys, I don't imagine have Wild Weasel in your possession, since you have the other versions. But a discussion of the Rattler cannot stand without a discussion of Wild Weasel.
Well, you guys can talk about Wild Weasel.
I actually have Wild Weasel.
Nice.
Shock horror. I just don't have a Rattler. So,
Oh, what a shame.
oh well, one day. Wait, that's Jinx?
I'm curious though, while Paul's looking for Wild Weasel, did it not appear, did the Rattler not appear in any of the video games?
Hmm.
No?
I'm trying to think if it was in Operation Blackout. I think you fight you're Cobra and you fight a Tomahawk. I can't recall if you're Joe at one point and fight a Rattler, but I do seem to recall two very similar. Oh, really? In Rise of Cobra?
Yeah.
Remind me of that battle, Paul.
It's in the snow. I think the Baroness is in it. It's when you fight the Baroness. It's like it's. I think it's before. If you're Cobra, you're attacking the MCC, and if you're GI Joe, you're defending the MCC.
That's correct.
I could be wrong. It could just be a generic jet or a helo, but for some reason I remember it being the Rattler. Or a Rattler.
Comment section, please take Paul to task if you know any better.
No, please.
That's a big if.
If I'm wrong, tell me. Because I'm sure shit never playing that game again.
Now, we immediately are in Carson Metaxas' debt because we're going to go straight to 3D Joe's, take a look at what we see there. We're going to find good old Wild Weasel's file card, a file card that I actually have to hand, but it wouldn't make for great radio or great visuals if I was holding up to the camera. But I'm going to just look at a few choice tidbits of information about Wild Weasel. Firstly, he is a character. There aren't a troop of wild weasels. He is a singular person in this file card anyway. That's not to say that the uniform doesn't get represented in GI Joe media as a troop. Now, in special missions, that same flight suit I think was colored green, and there were a bunch of pilots, Cobra pilots, wearing it. So who's to say it's not going to be colored red in other instances and they're just generic Rattler pilots? Or maybe the red is purely for Wild Weasel. I think that was your notion, hey Paul?
Yeah, he's the ace.
Yeah.
He's like Shah.
Okay.
Or the Red Baron.
Right. No, okay, I buy that. But yes, the sculpt itself, I wish they had done it in multiple colors. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Black Major, care to add Wild Weasel to your parts pool? Anyway,
I've got a feeling they may have.
Oh, really?
Anyway.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
I
I do know my main man Cujo would love to see the Boba Fett Viper deco applied to Wild Weasel's outfit instead of the Viper.
Ooh, that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
but if you're looking at Wild Weasel deco, at least we do get half of it in Tiger Force flavor.
Oh yes, with Sky Striker,
who pilots the Tiger
Rattler.
Random. And strange that we I do want to talk about him because he is important, but we don't see him piloting anything else. This is like the only vehicle he sort of gets given.
He's specialized in flying enemy aircraft, I guess.
Yeah, like, but I mean that
I don't know.
His
file card goes on to make him like the best Sky Strike. No, he's the best X-30 pilot. He pulls some crazy maneuvers. When did you get your Sky Striker figure?
I got him thanks to give me a second, I just want to remember people's names here. He's so awesome. He sends us like great he used to send us all kinds of awesome letters. He also sells Joe toys. What's that sexy man's name?
Dan.
I think it was Dan. Because when we went to JoeCon, he brought a few Tiger Force figures for me, and Sky Striker was one of them.
Wahey. Nice, dude.
Hey. Yeah, very cool.
Well, thank you, whoever Paul's benefactor
it was
is.
Dan Szymanski. Yeah.
Amazing. Go Dan. Guys, let's talk about Wild Weasel's file card, because deliciously it has one of the infamous typos saying Wild Weasel cut his teeth in the bus wars of South America and Africa. Whoosh, those buses, man. They're constantly having
Ish.
wars. Ish.
Buses.
Though true, I mean, minibus
That's
taxis
cool.
are
Oh, gosh,
a criminal
yeah.
enterprise in South Africa, and yeah, you could call their acts of violence bus wars. They
Also call
trash.
the way they drive flying.
Truth. I mean, there are number of things that jump out at me. Firstly, he is a very versatile pilot. He's flown in these bush wars, so he's flown extremely rudimentary aircraft that just have weapons jury-rigged to them. And then he's also flown state-of-the-art flying platforms. So I guess he might have come from a formal first world military, first world air force, flown the hot stuff, and then become a mercenary. Very exciting. What is interesting though, he's got a sibilant speech pattern. So more so than what you hear with Cobra Commander, this is Wild Weasel's trait, which is kind of why I never wanted to do Cobra Commander hissing in play motions, because to my mind that was Wild Weasel's thing. Yeah. I wound up giving him a lisp though.
No.
Which also
Right.
works, because I mean, if you've got a serious mouth injury, he would possibly have a lisp or a sibilant.
Yeah.
Or...
And not be able to kind of
So
stop
this
from
little
drooling,
badass
perhaps.
is actually such an interesting little toy as well. Like, he's such a fascinating little figure, because he's kind of he's like not a character to be scoffed at. He's pretty badass as his file card commands. He's very well made. Like, if you look at the actual body sculpt and everything, I mean, the head does come across as a bit big, but then to be fair, that kind of makes sense. Like,
It's a
the helmet
helmet.
would be, yeah, and it's got all this extra stuff at the back, and he's just really, really cool. And I always feel like he's a little underplayed in all of Joe Media, actually, even though he recently got a bit of a spotlight in that continuation of Shakedown, that little flashback comic book,
You get to
which
see his
proves that-
face.
yeah, which I kind of didn't want to. I like him
No.
having all of this mystery. But for the longest time, I was very undecided on this guy until I eventually got one. And I believe this one is actually courtesy of Back in Time Toys. So
Oh, nice.
when I got my Terror Drone.
Greg.
So yes, Mr. Greg Crockett. So thank you for that name dropping. Sorry, I hope you don't get doxxed. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't dig this guy until I actually had him in hand, because I always felt every time he was in photos and pictures and everything, he always looked like super goofy. And even the 25th anniversary version of him is kind of crappy looking in pictures. Not that I've actually seen that or can recall seeing that in hand either. But this guy's cool. He needs more respect. And he's also starting to creep into my heart. And that's actually one of the things I wanted to mention as well. I'm surprised we never got reprints of this guy from Hasbro in the form of, like you were saying earlier, why didn't we get a so-called pilot Viper or a air combat Viper or something? And then they could have just recolored this bad boy. And by that same token, I wonder why they didn't just redeco him. I mean, technically they did with Sky Striker to give us Sky Striker. That's what they did. They redecoed him. But I wonder if they should have just kept his original helmet as well. That would have been interesting. Maybe make him a turncoat. He's also turned to GI Joe now because he's a mercenary,
Yeah.
And also, what is
It's
his
funny.
nationality?
Ah, good question. I think we've got some fans on GI Joburg, in fact, who hypothesized that he could be South African. I would argue that he probably didn't get to fly terribly sophisticated aircraft. I mean, South Africa in the 80s had the Mirage 3, but that wasn't exactly a world beater.
There's a big difference between what we had and what our pilots actually flew. I think our pilots flew a lot more sophisticated aircraft than has been let on.
Still, I would have wanted him to be at the controls of a Tomcat or something. So he knows the weaknesses of the Sky Striker. He knows what he can do to take the fight back to him.
Well, if he's a mercenary and it's the 80s, there is
He's probably flown Phantoms.
Probably, but it's also
Probably flown MiGs.
I was gonna say, and didn't the US sell a contingent of or a small amount of F-14s to the Iraqis at one point, and I think it was sometime in the 80s. So it's very likely
I knew this not too long ago, that like when they mothballed the F-14s, they made sure that all of the American remaining F-14s were inoperable, so they couldn't be utilized. But there is an air force in the world that still operate them, and it's escaped my mind right now.
I think it's the Iraqi Air Force that has them. I think. Because I know that they've also upgraded the packages on them as well. So there's like a whole thing there. But I wouldn't be surprised.
One man's trash is another man's treasure.
There you go. And hey, listen, the F-14 is no joke. That is still an amazing aircraft.
My analogy doesn't really fit. But I think they were not the top of the line F-14s if they wound up in the Iraqi Air Force.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
that's true.
What do we know about modern aviation? This ain't Jane's. This is GI Joburg. I want to make mention of one last thing, and that's we have a quote at the end by Wild Bill about Wild Weasel, basically deriding him for the skunk that he is, but saying that he's damn good at what he does. So, and then Wild Bill gets philosophical and quotes Voltaire. To forgive our enemies their virtues, that is the greater... Oh dear, I've cut it off. Oh, no. I've got to find my way into my other... there we go. To forgive our enemies their virtues, that is the greater miracle. Which is basically saying, like, I hate this guy's guts, but I am going to acknowledge that he's bloody good. Yeah.
Yeah, you can still recognize what someone's good at, even if you don't like them.
And I would love this because I can only speculate and only secretly hope. Gundam came out in 1979. Okay, it was met with mild popularity, but got very popular upon its video release in Japan. And the character that got very popular from Gundam is not the main character, Amuro Ray. The character that got popular from Gundam is Shah Aznavour. And if you guys don't know who that is, he's known as the Red Comet in Gundam. He pilots a red mobile suit called also Zaku. It's a red one, but he is based. His character, he's an ace. He's a badass. He's feared. He's respected. He's loved. All those good things. And he's kind of sort of pseudo half based on the Red Baron. Now, I understand like having art parents and creative parents and all that. When I say that, I mean like having sources of inspiration. So yes, Wild Weasel could also just come from the same pool of imagination, like, oh, well, let's have a Red Baron for the GI Joe, or for Cobra, should I say, and give him all that stuff. But I still feel like Shah being very popular in pop culture, and men like Larry Hama being Japanese and knowing Gundam and knowing something at least about Gundam, even in passing, and maybe have had friends that have maybe even suggested this, or maybe even guys at Hasbro were sort of made aware of this character. But I sometimes feel like Wild Weasel is a little based on Shah Aznavour from Gundam. At least I want to believe that, you know? And I think there's enough evidence to support it.
The file card and then issue 34 basically teasing out that last paragraph, that quote. Like, its entire story is around, like, we are going to fight till our last bullet is spent, and if we don't have an outcome, we're going to salute one another and fly off in our, respective directions. So it's that case of, like, you're my bitter enemy, and I will fight you to the death, but I have the utmost respect for what you can do with your machine. So... yeah, I mean, all of these things were once again in the waters. But let's get past the media and let's talk about the plastic. Because we three each adore this plane. Paul, we're going to skip over the Tiger Rat for now. And because I haven't heard enough from Rob, we're going to talk about the A10. And perhaps this is fitting because guess what? Paul's Tiger Rat is actually the 25th anniversary version. Yeah. So let's do this chronologically and jump forward in time from 1984 to 1997. Talk to us about the A10 Thunderbolt.
So you want to go?
And I've got a question for Robbie.
First. You don't want to go. You haven't ordered this in any actual like.
Well, I guess all I'm saying is I think we. The basic blue is.
You're better now.
Yeah. For those of you listening, Paul has now shuffled the deck to put me on the bottom, and Rob's up next. But no, Rob, I think we've spoken in the sort of the media breakdown. We've spoken about strictly the blue Cobra Rattler. Let's switch it up, man. In our last 20 minutes talking plastic, give us your blushings with this toy. I mean, how did you get it, firstly? Because your version is the first one that we ever came into having.
Wow, thanks for that prompt, Stephen. Appreciate it. So there was a toy shop that we've mentioned a lot, that we frequented the Paro toy shop, and that's where
which you discovered.
Oh, I did.
I didn't know about it.
Probably my mom actually discovered it. She was like, "Oh, there's a toy shop over there. You should check out."
True story. She talks like that.
And yeah, it's the mythical toy shop where Stephen found his box tomahawk and several other things. And the one day we went there and we found this in its box, but unfortunately an open box. So while we were exceptionally fortunate, the entire vehicle is complete. It comes with all its necessary stuff, from all of the bombs to the removable pieces that kind of like do the damage, like in the comic book.
Though you did freak me out the first day you brought it, may I just say, because you brought it to my house without the tail, like the horizontal, the tail plane, which detaches. So you said that it was complete, and I'm like, but this big hole here, man. Where's this thing? It's missing something. I was like, no, bummer, man. This is going to be the most awesome GI Joe vehicle we've ever had, and now it's incomplete. But fortunately, Robert just left it at home for some other reason.
I don't know. Sometimes
keep me in suspense.
So yes, the entire vehicle was complete, but it did not come with its two pilots, being Ace and a version of Hawk. I think it's.
Jeez, go home, Sky Striker.
Yeah, basically a repainted version of the earlier version of Hawk. This isn't that version, the painted version, but it's a repainted version of this one. He kind of looks more, I believe, like grays. But kind of like more muted coloring, I think, in a way. I'm not sure exactly like what it looks like.
That's the worst helmet to put on him.
It would be. Oh, he never had a good helmet, unfortunately.
He did. He had a cool helmet.
I did have the helmet, didn't I? I feel like I had the helmet, but I didn't have any of the figures.
I've got the Ace helmet. Your one. Yeah. It's kind of a caramel brown. No paint apps, sadly.
Yeah.
And I've got the backpack, Hawk's backpack. I can give them to you sometime, Rob. Maybe a year from now when I'm back in Cape Town.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it was an absolutely magical day when we received this. And because it was unmarked, there was no stickers or anything on it. It could kind of play either way. It could play as a Joe vehicle, as it was kind of intended to be, or we could play it as an original Rattler. And then at some point in history, as I owned the vehicle more, I decided to do a little bit of painting on it. Unfortunately, I gave several of the bombs nipples. Nipples with, I thought, I don't know, like
that bomb's got
it's just more like a warning, like don't touch the front. I don't know. It's kind of a weird idea that I had.
And you made it a Cobra vehicle. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think this was later on. Stephen did a bit of extra stuff, but yeah, I did a bit of painting. I kind of painted the paneling in there, and I kind of accented the kind of like the.
That's nicely done, Rob.
Well,
well done, dude.
Pretty basic, I mean, if
you should see it under a better camera. Give it closer scrutiny. No, look, it was very well done for a boy in his teenage. I mean, we did it as teenagers, Rob. We were kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure Paul could have, airbrushed it to perfection at, the age
I didn't have an airbrush then, dude. Don't worry.
I've seen Paul's customs from that era. They ain't nothing to write home about either.
At that time,
hey,
so I mean, it's pretty.
You haven't seen mine. You've seen David's.
Ooh, shots fired. I loved having the Rattler or the Cobra. I'm doing it again. The GI Joe A10 at my fingertips because because of the VTOL feature, a lot of my adventures took place in buildings. For some reason, I think it was probably got to do with Die Hard and The Matrix. Like, there were a lot of urban environments in our play. A lot of it was infiltrating a Cobra-held building, hacking the hard drives, dealing with the security forces, and then escaping somehow, dramatically.
Well,
so
it kind of overcomes one of those big issues of fighter combat, as playing with toys. That's essentially the only thing you can do is run at each other. Somehow you can kind of like broke that, that kind of like, I don't know, that general conception, at least I have, of aircraft, where you could actually bring it into the actual meat of the action, and we could, characters could be fighting against it, shooting pistol rounds at it.
God bless the VTOL, man. And because it was a VTOL, it could maneuver in and amongst buildings, essentially inside the house, between cupboards, through passageways. And my favorite use for the GI Joe A10 Thunderbolt Rattler, whatever you want to call it, was in that Back to the Future Part 2 sense, where your hero character would drop off the building, and the bad guys would be like, "What? He's dead!" and then peer over the edge, and then up comes the GI Joe, and it just lays waste with that cannon.
I also like the
greatest moment.
Yeah.
Okay, what Paul's not doing? Oh shit! Okay, you're doing the True Lies, where the bad guy gets slung on one of the sidewinders and then gets fired.
You're fired. Oh man! And also just watching Toy Soldiers again the other day, and just seeing that AH-64 kind of appear just up, like over the sort of roofs of buildings, like, and then this makes me think of that too.
Paul, I can only imagine, like, apart from various film influences, did the A10 like have video game appearances that you can kind of channel with your Rattler?
Big time. So like, so when I did find out there was actually an A10 in GI Joe, then Ace Combat kind of came full circle, because then I started thinking, oh, okay, cool, Cobra Rattler vibes, that kind of thing. There was another game as well that had A10 in it. It's
Eagle Harrier attack? Eagle something
like that. But there was actually there was I think it was G-Lock. Well, no, not G-Lock. Lock On. It was also a PS1 jet game, but there was a cool shooting game, top down, not 1942. No, not top down, sideways. Aerofighters.
Isometric.
No, not isometric, from the side.
Words.
I'm trying to think of I think it's called a US Squadron, is the American name. It's a shooter, and it's actually got an A10 as well that you can use, and it's got like cool bombing stuff and whatever. So every now and then, you switch your brain into like, I'm actually playing Cobra in this mission. I'm bombing stupid Joes.
So nice.
And then I think Area 88, the game based on that, also has the A10 in it as well. I just like the A10, man. The A10 is a cool vehicle. It's a cool jet. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. When it was what was it? It was the Warthog was the one designation for it as well, wasn't it? Because
that is the name.
Yeah.
I think Thunderbolt 2 is just an honorary title.
I always get confused when people don't call it a Warthog. I'm like, this is a Warthog.
And I think I even built a model kit of an A10 at one stage as well.
Hell yeah.
But I wasn't like, that was long before I got knew about it being a GI Joe thing. Otherwise, I would paint one blue. Make it a.
You should do that.
Do that one day.
What do you think about it in Tiger Force colors?
Dude, I love this vehicle in Tiger Force colors. I actually have trouble believing that it's a Cobra vehicle at the moment. That's how used to it being in Tiger Force I am. Because this deco is such a swear word, actually, if you think about it. Because this is like they actually stole a Cobra jet. And I just love it, and it's like super, super insulting. They've got their teeth on the side and the eyes and everything. They've got all of the super futuristic capabilities that make the Rattler so awesome. Yeah, they've gone and stuck some US livery on it. Got the Tiger Force just to remind Cobra who stole their vehicle. Never mind, just the livery. And it's cute now. Look, it's got Snoopy nose.
It does have a Snoopy nose.
I love this thing. I love his cute little nose. It's so news, man. It's like such a like now it looks happy. Like now that you know his little nose, it looks happy. It doesn't look angry anymore. Also, I think I kind of tilted my eyes on mine a little bit, like, and I made it look a bit cute. But I think that was because I did the sticker job. Pretty much, I think it was the day we got back, like when I was away for a while. I actually started doing the stickers. Yeah. And Steve, I'm sure you want to ask me, like, how did I get it? Well, you guys, you will know I was there. You were there. We were there. This
Paul was there when you got it.
I was there when I got it. I saw it at JoeCon. It was a price. It was a price that was a little bit too high for me to afford with the dollars that were in my pocket at the time. And so my good friend, my good man, Mr. Bart, he went and haggled a little bit for me. And he
Barted.
He barted. Yeah, so thanks, Jens. That was super cool. And then I had this thing to lug around, and fun little like tidbit, and I feel like I may have mentioned this in a previous episode before, but just in case I haven't. We were in the transit hub, and we were leaving New York to get onto the bus to take us to. Well, we were going to leave to go. It was basically our last time in New York. It was like the last time we would be there. And as we were standing in the line to catch the bus to go back to Jersey, I've got this thing, of course, in a bag for some reason. I think it was because of that, because we were walking around and we were leaving the States. Sorry, my timeline's a bit funny. And somebody actually was like, "Oh my word, that's a GI Joe toy." And the other person was like, "Yeah, people collect those." And I remember, like, that was kind of how the conversation went. And I was like, "Oh yeah, they're talking about my big GI Joe box," because I had this thing like in a shopping bag.
Paul, you had GI Joe just exploding.
Everything.
You just GI Joe's pouring out of your bags, spilling out of your backpack. Yeah, you're a mess.
This one specifically said GI Joe on the box. Anyway, carry on. Sorry, Steve.
I adore the Tiger Rat. It's the boldest, most crazy, and I mean, it really works for an aircraft to have that tiger stripe. It's outrageous, and it should be. It's very aggressive. But I am going to give advantage to the A10 for having a painted mouth. I mean, of the missteps of the 15th anniversary 1997 GI Joe toy line, that was not one of them. The mouth, the eyes are painted, and they look phenomenal. The Tiger Rat,
absolutely good job on it.
It's a wraparound sticker, which is already going to be a little bit flaky and difficult to apply, particularly with that slightly weaker 25th anniversary adhesive. Paul, you've done an immaculate job. I feel like it could be further forward, but anyway, the paint application of the A10 is a high point for that set, I'll say.
Yeah, that temper printing on Rob's one is very, very cool. I actually dig that, and I'm also like just checking out the measurements of it, like how forward they got it. I've actually got mine coming over the engine cover a little bit as well, and I did give it a bit of a slice so that it does work with the engine cover.
That's cool.
But I'm looking at the detail here. Rob, your painted detail looks great, man. Looking at this detail here, it's better than yellow. But I just don't love.
Get in there with your airbrush, man.
The irony here is that I just love this being a big bad yellow jet or a big bad blue jet. As soon as it gets camouflage on it or anything, it takes something away from it for me. That said, I'm glad that it's the colors that Rob's one is, that the so-called A10 Wardog. I love that it's those colors and that they didn't go for the typical olive drab, khaki.
Yeah, that would have been a bit
kind of vibe. Yeah, it would have just been a bit like atypical.
Do we have any negatives for the A? Do you guys have any negatives? For me,
for yours,
in general, for the Rattler as a toy.
I do have. Me, yeah, go for it, Rob. You brought it up.
The landing gear. So the landing gear, my landing gear at the back, I don't know if there's a problem with all Rattlers, but like they do not want to stay out. We discovered this very early on. Stephen, over time, kept redesigning and designing little straws, which I use to kind of like keep it out. Otherwise, it just kind of collapses under its own weird weight. So that's probably one of the only issues that I have in general with the Rattler as a toy. What about you guys?
Rob, hold yours sideways on the camera. I just want to check something. Okay, you got the same issue. I thought they would have fixed this for 25th anniversary, because the landing gear on the 25th anniversary is not jiggly. It's not loose. It's in there, and I'm putting quite a bit of force. In fact, so much so that I'm scared it's gonna crack it if I'm not careful.
Mine are like super duper loose. It could be the type of plastic they used.
Oh, I think so. And also like also the mold on the Rattler is a little bit wonky. Like I find when you look at this vehicle from underneath, there's some like there's just a lot of mismatching here. It just feels very like a little bit cheap. And I don't think that's a 25th anniversary issue only. Yeah.
No. I mean, if you look at mine from underneath, you can see there's like a huge difference between the coloring at the front and the wing unit. And then this part kind of matches a little bit better to this part. But yeah, if you don't look at it from the bottom, it's fine.
That's just a bit weird. And then on mine, like, okay, that's like a nitpick, but the biggest thing the biggest issue I actually have with the Rattler, it's two things. It's these missiles, because I don't understand. Like, why?
The two-stage missiles.
I think the idea is cool, but the implementation is poopy, because it does this, and it's very annoying. Because when I wanted to, every time I like move this vehicle, I gotta like reposition these, and then I fight with them because they never like sit and look like perfectly straight, which is like super annoying. So I hate that. And also, I don't understand. Okay, this is gonna be controversial now. I don't understand why so many people speak so poorly of the Havoc, for example, but are willing to put up with this toy's biggest shortcomings, and that is, this is stupid. The turret concept is great, but the implementation as a toy is bad. You have to pull out the whole turret, put your dude in, then be careful not to scratch any paint off their arms as you like try to reapply, insert the turret. Then you get to close it again for whatever reason. Okay, cool. Then there's this mission here, which, okay, thank God they let you take this off. But you guys all know that after years and years and years and years of people doing this, you get cracked canopies. Thankfully, mine's not. And then, I mean, I love that this is 25th anniversary, right? This is meant to be able to seat a modern era figure. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't. Unless you got one of those very, very skinny 25th anniversary releases, like most of the early releases, you ain't getting a 25th anniversary figure in this at all. You can barely get a vintage figure in this. I'm too scared to put Morujo in here. I did it once, and when I took him out, nothing happened to the figure, but the foot kind of got lodged in there, and then I had nightmares about it scraping paint off, and I don't want to do it again. I also wanted to, for this video, thankfully I got Bazooka in the back here, but I couldn't, it took me a while before I decided how I was going to, before I could figure out how to get this, toy in there. So, this is just a shitty toy design, and I really, really don't appreciate this very much.
And we're all paying the price for it now. I mean, that's a 25th anniversary version, so the plastic is still less than 20 years old. But on a 1984, all those tabs are frail and so tiny. Rob, you speak about the landing gear being too flimsy and not clipping in its outward position. Well, there's supposed to be two nubs that would hold them in place. And on the 15th anniversary, your version, those nubs have been smoothed over to hopefully stop you from snapping your landing gear.
So they did pulling them out too aggressively. Improvements, but
it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. It's not a satisfactory fix. So they needed to go in and redesign this thing from the bottom up, trying to fix these issues with the existing vehicle, it's nigh impossible to do. I guess we just are left applauding it for what it is, which is the perfect size for a fun
absolutely. I mean,
jet toy.
It's so.
What if it was a little bit bigger?
Shut up your face.
No,
I wasn't going to do it, but I'll do it now. Just for this video.
I don't mean like...
Shut your face up.
God, I'm gonna like... that was a total... that's what she said thing. But if this was a little bigger, I think it'd be perfect. But like a little. Like just a tiny bit. Incy weensy.
This
teeny
is...
I remember that bad boy.
Now this isn't even scale accurate, but this is Power Team Elite's A10.
A10.
It doesn't even fit on the camera. I have to back up.
That's what he said. Guys, catch Steve on his OnlyFans. It doesn't even fit on the camera. Yeah, no. See, even that is too big. I just wanted a little bit bigger, bro. Like a little bit, just a tiny bit.
You know,
just a tiny bit, so that it could comfortably accommodate figures. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, if they had to do a HasLab for this, it would be interesting to see them make it a 2-seater for the cockpit. That would be interesting. Although I think the A10 is a single-seater anyway. But this would be a cool HasLab if they just made it, if they just like lengthened it a bit. You know? Just a little bit. Like, it doesn't even have to be a lot. It's like 2 inches in the front. You know, just 2 inches. Just give me 2 inches.
That's what every man says.
That's what every man says.
I guess I was wanting to ask in closing if there's anyone who has a favorite piece of ordnance, because part of the fun of your Rattler is configuring it for various different missions. Or do you prefer to just have everything on it at all times? Rob?
If I do pop stuff on it, I usually tend to just put everything on. Although I tend to put the little sidewinder missiles on less often, because I think mine unfortunately I have snapped over time. I think Stephen did a little fixies here, but they've come unfixed. So I find that these, I tend not to put these on. So I have 2 of them that are kind of okay. Well, everything else seems to fit much easier. So I think probably the way I would do it is I put everything on except for the sidewinder missiles. So mine would definitely just be a tank busting bomber most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Rob. Interesting question. I know what Steve's is going to say underneath it, but underneath the fuselage, you can see the date it was made. It's got the stamp, you know, and mine was made in 2002.
Whoa.
I know what Rob's going to say, but dude,
1997. Yeah.
What? Lies.
No.
Lies. You're lying.
I was wondering about that. I was really wondering about that.
Pawtucket, Rhode Island. That's what it. I mean, you will never see this on this picture quality, but if you run a little bit of AI upscaling on this image,
no, you're absolutely right.
Be able to read it.
I won't be able to read it, but it says 1984. You're lying.
No, it says 1997.
Rob
Why
can
would I
read.
lie about that?
I've seen it.
Well, then I'm misremembering, because I could have sworn, because I had a lot of playtime with your toy. It lived with me for a long time.
Of course it did.
And it is a far more fun vehicle at the best of times than playing with my Skyraven, which was like playing in a vacuum.
Established that. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. Fast jets are very lonely play, whereas attack jets, oh man, it's fast and furious. It's in the action. Feverish.
So the reason I actually brought that up was I was curious to know if my modern era was just basically a repress or reprint of Rob's A10.
Of an earlier.
And
no,
so
it is unique.
Yeah, because
people have with it.
Exactly, right. Because people have said that they've retooled this to accommodate modern era figures. Yeah, I mean, you can barely fit the Wild Bull that comes with it in here. You have to take his hat off anyway, or his helmet off.
Wild Bull without his hat on, it's not Wild Bull.
It's not Wild Bull. It's just the guy's glasses. I get you, but I was just curious about that because there are issues with this vehicle apparently, and there are like revisions of the Rattler out there, as far as I know.
Yeah, so they
There's
have
some-
been doing little things to it, but obviously not things
Mm.
that kind of fix the problems that a lot of people, I imagine, would have with it. But despite its issues, it's a fantastic toy.
I love that I
Absolute
can fly it like
legend.
this.
Tons of fun to play with. It's the perfect size, despite what Paul says. And it's in every single
Oh, thanks,
movie
Rob.
that you could ever enjoy for GI Joe. You can see it in the comic books, you see it in the cartoons. Definitely a 10 out of 10 vehicle. 10
Second
bombs out
that,
of 10.
boyos. In fact, I'm going to wager that we're unlikely to ever do a lame-ass vehicle or figure on these Spotlight podcasts.
For sure. I think
I
it
hope
should
we
just go
do.
as...
Oh yeah, you want to make a meal of it? Well then,
I
never
would
say
love
never.
to make a meal out of it. One of you can bring a pulverizer. We can go to town on that piece of shit. But
Yeah, run a
piece of-
train.
Banta
What?
poodoo.
we only do ones we all own.
Guys, this thing will be getting a place of pride in my studio, as I'll be hammering a nail in the wall to hang it up either next to the Raven or the Conquest.
How exactly do you
because,
hang it up? With
what I
one
do
nail?
is I use one nail and then I use fish
Nail and you
gut,
just
and
pop
then
it in
I
there.
like sort of do that kind of thing with the fish gut. Like,
Loop it
Hammer
around
landing gear.
the wing roots.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so far it's been pretty good.
Until it isn't.
But I get that high tensile like deep sea fishing line, hey?
Yeah,
So-
the one's slowly cutting into
it's
plastic
like
over
that,
time.
and it's like from a shop in China, so you know that shit's never gonna biodegrade.
Yeah, I have slightly less faith in your ability to tie a knot. Anyway, guys, this has been episode
I wasn't in the Scouts
309.
or anything. But anyway, long story short, before we walk out the door, I was considering doing that to a lot of my vehicles, like maybe having them like my Warthog and stuff like on the wall. I think it would look pretty damn cool. Like a
Yeah,
weapon
dude,
to-
hang everything
Just
off the wall.
cool
Hang
toys.
each individual figure.
The feature wall. As always, GI Joburg salutes its Patreon force and the YouTube members who
You mean
get
the Berg
a-
Force, you poop ball?
Yeah, whatever. The YouTube members who get a fun little tidbit from me week to week, and the Patreon members who get fun little tidbits from Paul whenever he drops
The Berg
tidbits
Force,
in.
including this video. Yay! Which you got early.
Yeah.
Yay!
Nice. Next episode will be another live show, and we will talk media. We'll talk, hopefully, Duke, if Paul sees fit to read it.
Actually,
we
I'm having
will-
trouble getting my hands on that, but we
Oh.
will. But yes, of course, I'll read it. I'm dying to
Paul,
read it.
we'll figure it out, don't you worry.
We'll figure it out. Thanks, man.
And of course, we'll talk about some cartoons. Phantom Brigade from the original Sunbow animated series, and
Paul can get around to watching it.
episode 13 of GI Joe Renegades. So it's the one after.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the one
Okay.
where the guy actually talks about what did you do to get positioned here? To get this
All right, you jokers. Catch you guys next time. I gotta pack some bags and heaven help me, some toys.
Yeah, take the toys.
Yo, Joe.
Rat, the tiger rat.